Caitlin Huey-Burns is a national political reporter for Real Clear Politics, and she joins us now. Great to see you.
Hi, you too. Thank you.
So the Air Force did award Boeing a contract for a new Air Force One, but it's not expected to go into service until 2024. So why is Donald Trump going after Boeing?
Well, it's not clear exactly what triggered this, but we've heard Donald Trump on the campaign trail actually talk about Boeing and its potential to send jobs manufacturing overseas. The company, of course, has pushed back on that at some points, but this has always been, or has been on the campaign trail, an issue of contention. Also, what it does is it really speaks to Donald Trump's message, kind of telling voters and his soon-to-be constituents as the president that he is going to rein in some of the spending that's been going on. To your point, this wouldn't go into effect until potentially after Donald Trump's presidency, and the exact price tag of that is not yet clear. But it's also important to remember that Air Force One is equipped with all sorts of security measures, some that we don't even quite know about. So whether Trump decides to use the current airplane or go with this upgrade, I mean, these precautions have to be in place.
Caitlin, this morning, Trump, a member of the Trump transition team, they were asked if President-elect still owns stock in Boeing. Jason Miller told reporters that Trump sold all of his stock back in June. Do you think this will help silence critics of any business conflicts here?
Well, the potential conflicts of interest haven't really gone away, and he hasn't really done much about them yet because his children are still involved in the business. They are set to run the business, and they're also, of course, on his transition team in charge, or at least advising the president-elect on some choices. We saw Ivanka Trump, for example, very involved in some of these, meeting with Al Gore, also in the meeting with the Japanese prime minister, and so the conflicts are still there. He's supposed to hold a press conference next week to address this, stepping away from the company, but of course they will still be there throughout his presidency.
Let's talk about the cabinet. And he is still meeting with a ton of different people from different varying backgrounds. Is he trying to build a very diverse cabinet, or are a lot of these meetings just for show?
Well, that's the really interesting question. Everybody heading into Trump Tower, it has become somewhat of a theatrical event, a reality show it's been compared to, particularly when it comes to who he will choose for Secretary of State. Last week, the transition team said that it had narrowed down to 4 people. Now that search has expanded. Rex Tillerson, of course, is meeting with Trump today. He's been talked about as a potential Secretary of State. The thing with Trump is that we really don't know, and it's hard to really draw connections among all of those people considered for that one post. And so we know that he has been very public about this compared to presidents-elect in the past. He has used Twitter to talk about some of these choices. He's been kind of parading them around in some ways. So whether he chooses any of the people on this list remains to be seen.
Well, as everybody is waiting and curious to hear who is going to be the pick for Secretary of State. But in the meantime, 8 cabinet posts have been filled. What do you make of his choices so far?
Well, he has responded to some criticisms early on that his cabinet would be all white men. He has brought in people like Nikki Haley and others, Elaine Chao and others. But he's also been criticized for compiling an administration so far that looks very kind of traditionally Republican. He's also been criticized, of course, for bringing in Treasury Secretary, or nominating as Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, who has obvious long ties to Goldman Sachs and that sort of thing. So he campaigned on draining the swamp and has been criticized for choosing some people who are kind of part of that establishment.
He heads back out on his thank you tour today, heading to North Carolina. How unusual is it for a president-elect to return to the campaign trail when there's still cabinet positions that need to be filled?
Well, it is unusual. Presidents-elect tend to campaign a little bit before the inauguration. Bill Clinton took a trip from Charlottesville to D.C. Of course, Barack Obama took that whistle-stop tour from Philadelphia to Washington, a kind of campaign-like events meant to show the president would be in touch with the American people. That's certainly what Donald Trump is hoping to do, but he's also going to places that helped him win the presidency, the historical presidency, really. And we've seen if his event in Cincinnati last week was any indication, he has not really given up the idea of campaigning, still talking about primaries, for example. It is intended to bring him into connection with the people, kind of point to this disconnect that's existed between Washington and the rest of America, but his critics say that it is replicating a campaign performance.
He likes to be out there, don't you think?
He loves campaigning, and that's a huge part of it as well. And you can imagine as president that he would want to be on the road as much as possible. Of course, he recognized last week, too, the costs involved, the security involved are very different when you're president as compared to a candidate.
Caitlin Huey-Burns, it's always great to see you. Thank you.
You too. Thank you.